Revenge is one of the most powerful motivators over all time.
In this top 10, we're counting down the NFL's best revenge games.
I love this, baby. I love this. Revenge is so sweet.
That's extremely healthy for pro football.
These aren't your run-of-the-mill rivalries. They are bitter affairs with an added twist.
I think a key element to revenge is somebody got screwed by somebody. There needs to be a chip on your shoulder that you got hosed.
The biggest reason you'd want revenge is because somebody cut you. You know, when you're playing against your old team, it's your chance to redeem yourself, to show them, you know, hey, you shouldn't have cut me.
There has to be a love story ending with animosity, a bad breakup.
Gotta get our revenge now, though. Real personal.
Messy divorces, petty paybacks. This list has it all.
The number 10 revenge game of all time. John Gruden blackballs the silver and black.
That's all 10?
Oh, it's ridiculously low.
It's close to right. If you take off the 0, it would be right. That should be number 1.
I mean, that should be up there in the top 2 or 3.
I'm so proud to represent this franchise as their head coach.
John Gruden came to the Raiders as an unknown quantity, as the youngest coach of the league, and did something remarkable. He completely changed the culture.
In just his 3rd season as Raiders head coach, Gruden led Oakland to its first division title in a decade, en route to the AFC Championship game.
You guys are number 1 in the AFC West, divisional champions. Congratulations.
He was animated.
Yeah!
He was cute.
We got the boringest kickoff return in the history of this great league.
He had colorful language.
Breaking a huddle, we break it like a sack of
John Gruden would have been a perfect Raiders coach for life.
Let's all start a chant here. Raiders! 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 Raiders!
He was the lowest paid coach in the league at the time. But it was so obvious that he had done something momentous. In any normal world, he would have had his contract extended for big money. But they didn't give him money. They let it fester.
So Al Davis trades Gruden to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 2 first-round and 2 second-round draft picks and $8 million. I think it surprises Gruden a little more than he lets on.
Not respecting him. That's something I guess you don't do to John Gruden.
And so the animosity factor there is a little greater than people realize.
So he comes to Tampa Bay.
Quite simply, I'm thrilled to be here.
Now, they were a good team. Gruden comes in, puts the icing on the cake.
In his first year as Tampa Bay's head coach, Gruden led the Bucs to the Super Bowl.
Tampa Bay, we're going to the Super Bowl.
And who won the AFC to set up our number 10 revenge game? That's right.
The silver and black are back in the Super Bowl.
It was a dream matchup. It was too perfect.
You gotta love this, don't you? Jesus, Christ.
In the Super Bowl, and more importantly, Gruden getting a chance to kind of shove it in Al Davis's face.
Oh, love that, love it.
Welcome to Super Bowl 37, and you can just feel the electricity of the air.
And not only does he go in being the extreme underdog, he kicks their rear end. I mean, it was a total blowout.
Flush to his right, throws it down. It's picked off.
We ain't even started yet.
It's the ultimate referendum on John Gruden as a coach. I have no idea how you can put that number 10.
So why isn't our number 10 revenge game higher on the list? Simple. It was too easy. Gruden barely broke a sweat.
It was really unfair because that was his Raiders team that he built.
And the reason the Raiders lose to the Bucs is because Gruden knows everything there is to know about Rich Gannon and that Raider offense.
Hey, Slug OC!
Gannon pump fake, looking to his right, throwing to his right, intercepted!
Dexter, I told you, baby! I told you, was it Slug OC? Come on, let's go, don't let up!
He knew the Raiders' plays before the Raiders knew the Raiders' plays.
Like every play they've run, we ran in practice. I know.
They ran 3 interceptions back for touchdowns against the league's MVP.
Gannon to throw, here's the pass, and it's picked off, intercepted, touchdown, Tampa Bay! Buccaneers win, Buccaneers win, Buccaneers win in San Diego!
Complete sweet revenge for John Gruden. Can you imagine the sweetness of that victory?
I can't remember a coach looking like he had more fun in a game than Gruden had in that game.
Super Bowl, baby! Boom, boom, boom!
And when John Gruden left, the Raiders went down the tubes.
Right now, we're horrible. Well, we don't suck. We're just not playing well. No, we suck. What am I saying? It's because of Gruden being gone. Ever since you got rid of him, we've been horrible. We had 7 seasons of 11 or more losses. Bring back John Gruden to me.
Don Shula's revenge in the 1971 AFC Championship game just missed making our list. The Colts owner, Carroll Rosenblum, never forgave him for losing Super Bowl III.
Of course, the Jets lost the Super Bowl when we were heavily favored.
The New York Jets are the world champions.
My relationship with the owner was never quite the same after that loss.
It damaged their relationship beyond repair.
Intractable egos there, hard-nosed, tough guys, competitors, and I don't think any of them ever apologized to anybody.
Unitas throws over the middle. It's intercepted. It's intercepted. Don Shula and the Dolphins are going to the Super Bowl.
The number 9 revenge game of all time. The Pack gets back at Mike Holmgren.
In Green Bay, Coach Mike Holmgren reached hero status after the Packers brought the Lombardi Trophy home for the first time in almost 3 decades.
World champion, Green Bay Packers.
You got to feel great for Mike Holmgren. I'll tell you, he did a heck of a job.
The bad blood started pumping 3 years later when Holmgren cruised west to take a sweeter gig.
The Seahawks promised him a 2-hat job, GM and coach, and they made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
As a coach, you cannot ask for any more than I've been given here.
There was a sense of betrayal on the Packers fans because there was some acrimony, there was bitterness about Holmgren's departure. That was certainly a part of the buildup.
And then you get to 2003, we end up playing the Packers in that playoff game. Back there, Lambeau Field.
And of course, Mike wanted to win the game for the Seahawks and himself just to show what they missed when he's gone.
For 4 quarters, Holmgren appeared to have a real shot at sticking it to his former team.
Touchdown Seahawks!
It looked like they put it together to win in Green Bay, which is something I don't think anybody had done to that point.
Hasselbeck takes the snap, hands off Alexander, powering forward, touchdown Seahawks!
And we will go to overtime.
Who's going to call?
I got
Matt's going to call.
I got it.
With revenge up for grabs, Matt Hasselbeck added fuel to the fire with his statement during the overtime coin toss.
So we're going to score.
I said, who's that quarterback? Is that Favre now over there?
You don't do that.
I was amused, and then I said, you better go back it up.
What happened? Came back to bite him you know where. In the posterior.
Short drop, quick throw, left side, yes,
This one's interesting because it's the revenge of that Packers squad against their old coach, Mike Holmgren.
As the Green Bay Packers send their former head coach, Mike Holmgren, and the Seattle Seahawks back to the Pacific Northwest.
The number 8 revenge game of all time. The Eagles shut up and shut down T.O.
This game is a whole city's revenge on Terrell Owens.
Your career may end today, T.O.
There's a lot of bad blood.
They can hate me all y'all want to.
Especially the Eagle fans seeing Owens going to their most hated rival, the Dallas Cowboys.
He has a passion for the game. I don't mind the personality.
After losing 3 straight NFC championships, Philadelphia signed Terrell Owens in 2004 to fill a glaring need at wide receiver.
He did great things for the Eagles. I mean, they had their best offensive season they ever had with him. It was exciting. McNabb became a better quarterback with T.O.
And that is the luxury that McNabb, until this year, never had.
You felt the entire year they were going to go to the Super Bowl.
T.O. proved to be the missing piece to the Eagles' Super Bowl puzzle.
The Eagles, for the first time in 24 years, are headed to the Super Bowl.
That's coming now.
He could have been a legend here in Philadelphia.
I can't think of a player that was more beloved in the city. And then it all turned just like that.
In the offseason, realized he had a bad contract. And when they came back for training camp, he didn't perform, and they wound up sending him home.
Terrell Owens has been suspended for conduct detrimental to the team. This guy went out into the driveway, took his shirt off, and held an impromptu press conference.
I was asked to leave training camp today, and that's it.
The 3 local news choppers were up in the air.
Some would say this is starting to become a circus.
I love the fans.
The driveway workout was theater of the absurd that I have never seen. I think that the opinion of Terrell Owens at that time was good riddance.
And then, on top of everything else, after the Eagles let him go, he signed with the Dallas Cowboys. Certainly made him public enemy #1 in the minds of the fans.
This is America's team, and I feel right at home.
Owens' arrival in Dallas set up our #8 revenge game in Philly.
So you have the circus coming to town with Owens.
I'm probably the most hated guy coming into Philly this weekend.
It was so huge. It had the feel of an NFC championship game.
Not only did Owens not play well, he played poorly. He starts dropping balls early in the game.
Over the middle and a drop by Terrell Owens.
It felt like the whole game he didn't have a catch.
They knew that as the game would go along, he would get more frustrated. If he wasn't getting the ball a lot, he would get more frustrated.
I think the Eagles really made a concerted effort to say, hey, we're not going to let this guy beat us.
At the end of the day, he has 3 receptions, 45 yards. Dallas loses by a couple of touchdowns.
He was very, very unhappy.
Did you love this? Savor it.
Hey, it doesn't get any sweeter than that, fellas.
Tony Dungy's revenge against the Bucs just missed making our list.
Going into the game, the storylines were enormous. The Bucs were the defending Super Bowl champions.
Buccaneers win! Buccaneers win in San Diego!
The Colts arguably had one of the top offenses in the league.
Favre touchdown again!
It's Tony Dungy's return to Tampa, the team that ran him out of town.
I hate to spoil Dungy's homecoming.
Dungy's Colts stormed from 28 points behind to earn payback for their coach.
Touchdown, Colts!
We're tied. They're going to come after this one. A 29-yarder snap. The ball is down. The kick is up. It is good. Colts win.
It was sweet revenge, but our next game had enough ill will to spark a 50-year grudge.
The #7 revenge game of all time. Bobby Lane ties the Lions.
Bobby Lane was a heck of a player.
He was their leader. He was their spirit. He was the face of the Detroit Lions.
The greatest comeback quarterback of all time.
The original captain comeback, Bobby Lane led Detroit to championships in 1952 and 53. And this fan favorite played hard both on and off the field.
Well, there was quite a bit off the field.
Bobby Lane accomplished more on less sleep than anybody in the history of the National Football League.
He could go out and spend hours the night before drinking and clear up by the 4th quarter. Lane would have one of his magical comebacks. He's a legend here.
In 1957, the Lions grew tired of their quarterback's off-the-field antics and signed veteran Tobin Rote. When Lane broke his leg, Rote guided the Lions to a championship. The next season, Lane was traded to Pittsburgh.
At Pittsburgh's Forbes Field, former Lion favorite Bobby Lane led the Steelers in an interconference clash with Detroit. A 12-year pro veteran, Lane showed no love for the Lions. And I might add, the feeling was indeed mutual.
With 11 seconds left on Southern's field goal attempt is blocked by Bill Glass, and the game ends in a 10-10 tie.
I don't know that Bobby felt any great satisfaction after that game, because it wasn't as if he was necessarily depriving the Lions of anything either. They weren't going anywhere that year.
The game may have been a tie, but Lane still got his revenge.
It's not the revenge of that game, it's the revenge by the curse.
Lane, when he was traded, as he left Detroit, said the Detroit Lions will never win another championship for 50 years, and they haven't. Not only that, since that time, the Detroit Lions have won only one playoff game.
They also became the first team in history to go 0-16.
He ran out of bounds. He ran out of the end zone. It's a safety. They are the worst team in league history.
The
position that has been most cursed on the Lions since Bobby Lane left is the quarterback position.
Greg Landry is the only Pro Bowl quarterback in 1 year, 1972. There was no other Pro Bowl quarterback since Bobby Lane.
How can you go 50 years and have one Pro Bowl season by a quarterback?
Curse of Bobby Lane is still in effect.
I like to think that Bobby, wherever he is enjoying it very much.
The number 6 revenge game of all time. The Patriots beat the Jets after Spygate.
The origin of our number 6 revenge game dates back to 2006, when Eric Mangini left New England to become the head coach of the New York Jets.
Eric Mangini left Bill Belichick's organization after Belichick basically said to him, you shouldn't leave to go coach the Jets.
And that absolutely drove Bill Belichick insane.
The bad blood between Mangini and Belichick was on display during their infamous post-game handshakes.
We've seen dignitaries from rival nations spend more time shaking hands or at least faking like it meant something.
What did you say to Mangini after the game?
You want to talk about the game? And we're not going to get into a post-game analysis here. I've had enough of that.
The animosity between the two escalated thanks to the Spygate scandal.
NFL security person confiscated a camera that was on the Patriots sideline in which the Patriots are accused of taping the Jets and some of the signals that they were sending in.
Patriots live behind, an iron curtain. And Eric Mangini, he leaked out that they've been taping other teams' play calls and hand signals.
But this is part of the problem. If you're Belichick and you leave your assistants with a bad taste in their mouth, then they're liable to turn on you.
Later that season, the Patriots hosted the Jets in what would become the number 6 revenge game of all time.
This was going to be the day where the Patriots got their revenge for Eric Mangini and the Jets blowing the whistle. It started out that way, too. I remember there was a big play right out of the gate.
In the end zone, he gets hit as he gets rid of the ball. It's picked off and run in for a touchdown.
But that game did not become the blowout that I think a lot of Patriots fans were hoping for. It was an absolutely miserable day in Foxborough. It was cold, it was wet, it was windy, there was snow on the ground. The Patriots did end up winning the game.
Maroney, the tailback in the eye, dives into the end zone. Touchdown.
Remember the handshake after the game?
The intrigue of that was just as big as the actual game.
I guess they were expecting him to either hug him or deck him. I'm not sure which.
All of us are also wondering if it was going to be the stare down, the WWE wrestling stare down.
Great game, Eric. Great game. Awesome. A very civilized meeting it was.
Our number 6 revenge game is only a small part of this revenge tale.
Trying to see what team y'all working for. Y'all working for the Pats or y'all working for the NFL? We trying to figure it out.
When Eric Mangini narked on the Patriots with Spygate, it cost the Patriots their reputation.
Is Belichick really a genius, or does he just have the right film?
That's what really upset Belichick.
You think we cheated to get this dynasty? Fine. Now we're going to do it without the aid of video cameras. We're just going to come out and drive you into the ground. And they did it.
The Patriots, for the 3rd game in a row, have gone over 40 points.
They were telling the rest of the league to kiss off.
And for the first time in the National Football League, a team has won all 16 regular season games.
But in the end, it was the Giants who got the last laugh.
The Patriots will not be perfect. They were for 18 games, but not the 19.
One step shy of creating the greatest revenge trail since the guy in The Princess Bride, Inigo Montoya.
Knowing Bill Belichick, all he's going to focus on ever is the one. He's never going to feel good about what happened that year. But at the time, I'm sure he felt pretty good about beating the Jets.
The number 5 revenge game of all time. Cedric Benson rips the Bears.
When Cedric Benson arrived in Chicago in 2005, this future star flamed out.
They drafted the guy 4th overall.
The Chicago Bears select Cedric Benson.
If you remember, he wept on draft day.
He did not want to go to Chicago. The guy simply did not work hard, was not in good shape.
Left an exhibition game early, and when he did get on the field, he would moan and groan.
You just see my knee on the ground right there?
Just a total tool.
Nobody rolled their eyes or turned their head when they heard Benson got released by the Bears.
Benson was out of football until the Cincinnati Bengals gave him a second chance.
When he came here, he portrays himself as this humble guy,
showed himself as a hard worker, and he was nothing but a prince.
And you can't ask for more of a running back than what he's done here in Cincinnati.
Benson just racking up the yardage. Benson, who has had himself a whale of a day.
In 2009, Benson got his shot at revenge.
There was actually some trash talking going on the week leading up. Benson saying that he thought the Bears had blackballed him when he was out of the NFL.
They were unfair about how they treated him here when they drafted him number 4, and he underachieved. Who treated who like? The Bears are still in my blood. I'm a monster of the Midway, son, and if you wrong the monsters of the Midway, I'm like Cujo on your car window.
Cujo nor the 85 Bears could have stopped Benson, who rushed for a career-high 189 yards.
He was like a new guy. I mean, he looked like the elite running back we all thought the Bears were going to get out of Texas when they made him a top 5 pick.
There's no question he was definitely geeked up to play the Bears. He wanted to prove a point.
Look at him, he's energized for money. Cedric Benson showing a burst and acceleration that I don't think the Chicago franchise knew that he had.
To have Cedric Benson just run roughshod was kind of embarrassing.
Give it to Ced. Boom. He's in the end zone. Touchdown.
Cedric Benson is going to have just a huge taste of satisfaction.
He came back and showed everybody here he could play when he wants to. Way to go, Cedric.
You got to give Benson his due. Boy, he got the Bears back pretty good.
The number 4 revenge game of all time. Paul Brown tops the Browns.
Paul Brown really was the Cleveland Browns.
The mighty Cleveland Browns come charging onto the field. And the capable mentor who put them on top, Coach Paul Brown.
The man behind our number 4 revenge game coached the Cleveland Browns to 7 championships. But in the early 60s, Brown failed to build a winning relationship with new owner Art Modell.
He didn't like my being in the office at 7:30 in the morning. He sort of was a little upset with that. Our relationship cooled until in January '63, I called him into my office and said, we're going to go different directions.
There's no rah-rah in professional football. It's a cold, hard, commercial game.
That shook my father to his core.
Paul Brown was very bitter for many years. He really felt that it was something that he didn't deserve. He had put so much of his life into the team. It was his life. And it was taken away from him for really no good reason.
Paul Brown was never going to forget. Ever.
For 5 long years, he went into exile.
Brown resurfaced in 1968 when he became owner and head coach of the expansion Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, you look fine. Thank you. Feel pretty good. I'm happily settled down again to living a normal life, and I like it.
Good luck.
Turns out Brown spent his hiatus plotting his revenge down to the smallest detail.
We wondered why we looked so much like the Cleveland Browns.
Art Modell objected to that. You stole my uniform, he said. And my dad said, well, who stole whose uniform?
In 1970, AFL and NFL merged.
Art Modell takes $2 million to move to the AFC. They're placed in the same division.
So now you've got these two enemies meeting twice a year.
And if you don't think that's big, you don't know what big is. To him, it was damn important.
From that day forward, every game between the two teams has been fueled by revenge and hatred.
Will the next person that sees anybody throw anything onto this field, point them out, and get them out of here? You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
But few of those games could compare with the first 2 meetings.
If those games were played today in the internet age, we would have built up Paul Brown against Art Modell to Armageddon levels.
This is the day Paul Brown returns to the city where he founded a football dynasty.
In that first meeting, the Browns won the game.
Always a step behind the other guy. Always the whole damn defense.
The Bengals had led most of the way, and the Browns rallied in the fourth quarter, won the game by a field goal.
They were too slow, Bill. One guy can just screw up the whole thing terrible.
After the game, Brown was so distraught, he refused to shake hands with the man who replaced him in Cleveland, former protege Blanton Collier.
Not only did he not shake Blanton Collier's hand, but I've heard reports that he never spoke to Blanton Collier again.
In Cincinnati, another of pro football's great new rivalries was preparing to step into its second stage of development.
Playing Cleveland and Cincinnati, he wasn't going to settle for us to not win. The game was close.
Milton Morin's catch set up a touchdown sweep by number 44, Leroy Kelly. And the Browns seemed on their way to breaking their rare two-game losing streak.
We responded in the second half, and we scored a couple of times and was able to win that game.
Paul Brown, who never emoted, runs off the field into the locker room ahead of his team, and after the game calls it the biggest win he's ever had in his life.
The only time I saw Paul Brown cry was when we beat Cleveland for the first time.
Beating Cleveland was probably more important in my dad's mind than anything else that happened that year, including winning the division.
He waited a long time for that moment, and the revenge was sweet.
Got a hell of a reputation, don't I?
A long line of people want to exact revenge from Keyshawn Johnson, but none like Wayne Corbett.
And with Corbett and Keyshawn, those two weren't real fond of each other.
First year playing, I was a rookie.
Wayne Corbett.
Yeah, so when
he had number 80 and you won.
And I won 80, so it was kind of like, well, what do you do?
The feud grew as number 19 criticized number 80, and when they squared off in 2000, the player Keyshawn once dismissed as a flashlight eclipsed the star.
Martin with a halfback option. He's got Corbett in the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, New York Jets with 52 seconds remaining.
Corbett and the Jets got a small taste of the revenge pie, but not a big enough slice to make our list.
The number 3 revenge game of all time. Chief Joe Montana scalps the Niners.
I was at that game, and that is as electric an atmosphere as I've ever seen.
It was about as good a hype as you're ever going to get for a Week 2 game.
Joe Montana led San Fran to 4 Super Bowl titles in the 80s. In the Bay Area, he was bigger than the Golden Gate Bridge.
But you would never think a guy as great as Joe Montana and what he had done for the San Francisco 49ers would ever be traded.
But in 1993, Montana was dealt to the Chiefs against the wishes of Niner Nation.
We got Joe! We got Joe!
Oh, wow. Every 49er fan's worst nightmare.
Heartbreaking, traumatic. I still haven't recovered. That other red jersey on in the wrong number. He's wearing number 19.
It was stranger than it would be today because, again, that was just sort of the outset of free agency.
It was huge, huge news for him to be in another uniform. And now for him to get a chance to go back and play against his old team that he had done so many things for, it was big, big, big time news.
The Montana trade opened the door for his understudy, Steve Young.
The 49ers are now Steve Young's team. But San Francisco is not Steve Young's town because Steve Young hasn't won a Super Bowl.
Emotionally, I think there's a lot of people in the Bay Area, like, they went with him.
In the San Francisco Bay Area, there were probably just as many people rooting for the Chiefs and Joe Montana as there were for Steve Young and the 49ers.
Montana's still the best, and he always will be.
It's hard to say big game, just the second game of the year, but this is.
This doesn't light your fireman. The pilot lights out.
And Joe Montana, as I suspected, played flawless football.
High formation play fake by Montana. Wants to throw wide open. Joe Valerio has a touchdown.
I counted on the 49ers being protective of Steve Young and desperately trying to win for him. What neither he nor I counted on was the Chiefs had this crazy yearning to please Joe Montana, their new quarterback.
Steve Young took a pounding.
Derek Thomas and Neil Smith and company just pummeled him into submission.
Young will throw. He's being rushed. He's headed the end zone. It's a safety. Derek Thomas nails Steve Young. Send Young to the hospital. Send Young to the hospital.
And Steve Young dragging himself off the ground and saying to Chiefs defenders, what do you have against me? What did I ever do to you guys? The Chiefs were so fired up to win that game for Joe Montana.
This 49er, Montana, Bono, Whitmore, whatever, is history.
Felt like I was the apprentice that learned. He was the master. He's, in many ways, one of the greatest as far as winning Super Bowls for, you know. I got to get there yet.
It was win-win because Joe won the game and Steve took what he got from that game and channeled it into a Super Bowl triumph.
Someone take the monkey off my back, please.
And even after he won it, I don't think he's ever been accepted as Montana's equal.
That was the best team of the decade for the 49ers. They only lost 3 games, and one of the games they lost was at Arrowhead to Joe Montana.
That was just Joe Montana showing everybody he's the man.
Revenge is sweet, and no one knows that better than Chad Pennington.
Pennington plants, throws, end zone, touchdown! You can't throw it any better than he just threw it.
After 8 seasons in New York, the Jets dumped him for Brett Favre. A year later, with the AFC East at stake, he made his old team pay.
Hey, big man. Have a great, man.
I didn't want to play the game of football.
Firing downfield once again. Touchdown, Miami! Boy, what a throw by Chad Pennington.
We'll get out there on the 50, put on the gloves, and let's go at it.
Pennington pumps, steps up, looks right, throws right towards the end zone. It is caught. Touchdown!
And the Miami Dolphins are the champions of the AFC East. Go right here to this quarterback.
The following season, it was Favre who got revenge on his former team.
The number 2 revenge game of all time.
Number 2.
Brett Favre sticks it to the Packers.
If they don't want him in Green Bay and he wants to play, go play someplace else. They were just hoping it would be in Siberia. They didn't think it would be right across the street in the same division.
Brett Favre came back to beat the Packers.
Because he'd made no bones about it. Brett Favre wanted his revenge on Ted Thompson.
And he pulled it off.
Our number 2 revenge game began taking shape in 2007 after Favre had spent 16 seasons with the Packers.
This could very well be his last game.
When do you think you'll make your decision?
Soon.
The Brett Favre retirement watch is over.
I am officially retiring.
If it were only that simple.
News breaking on Wednesday that Favre was considering a comeback.
Favre indeed came back as a Jet. At season's end, he retired. Again. Sort of.
Brett Favre is a future Viking just waiting for his arm to heal.
And a Viking source told me that the official word came out that Brett has decided to remain retired.
What's going on? Okay, Brett, make up your mind.
I don't know if I'm coming back. I can't stand it.
Brett Favre ending his retirement for the 2nd year in a row, officially signing on Tuesday with the Minnesota Vikings.
In Week 4 of 2009, Favre would go head-to-head against his old pack.
He hated the Vikings, and now all of a sudden he's a purple people eater, and he's looking across the field with that big G on the helmet. It had to be just unbelievable.
Much anticipated, almost 2 years in the making.
He was nervous for that game.
He had a lot of trouble sleeping that Sunday night before that Monday night game.
Everybody cared about Brett Favre facing the Packers again.
Emotions on both sides of the ball. The biggest game on the planet. Don't get no bigger than this, baby.
The concern was, will he come out and try to do too much? Favre played spectacular.
Fires left side of the end zone. Touchdown to Shanko. Favre throws it over the middle. Brett has a touchdown. 3 touchdowns tonight for Brett Favre against his former team.
I was the person that was like, no. I don't want him on the team. I hated his guts my whole life. I don't want to stop hating him. And then, of course, he beats Green Bay, and you're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, he's ours now. Woo! Suck it.
Team on 3. 1, 2, 3, team. Yes!
In an encore to our number 2 revenge game, Favre played in Green Bay for the first time ever, not wearing green.
The reaction from the fans was a lot more vitriolic than anybody could have ever foreseen.
I don't think the enmity was really there on the players' side. It was just there on the fans' side, who wanted to vomit when they saw him dressed in purple.
Oh my God, Favre is in a purple uniform. I can't deal with this.
I've never heard boos that loud. It was unanimous. Everyone was booing.
And he didn't bat an eye. He played as well as you could play. 4 touchdowns in the return to Lambeau.
Brett Favre has 7 touchdowns and 0 interceptions this year against his former team.
Brett Favre came through, as he often does,
in a very emotional situation and was able to get the win.
Brett Favre proved to me that night that there's not anything that he can't handle.
Satisfaction to Brett Favre.
What a great homecoming for Brett Favre. Kick ass on 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes!
Brett Favre got the last laugh.
Green Bay Packer fans can't wait for Brett Favre to retire. I mean, really retire. They don't want to take him on twice a year. They don't want to pull against him. This is the greatest Packer of them all.
And now, the #1 revenge game of all time. The Colts beat the Pats in the 2006 AFC Championship.
Patriots-Colts is the best rivalry in the NFL in the past decade, one of the great rivalries of all time.
But during the first half of the decade, this storied rivalry was completely one-sided.
Patriots have pretty much had their number.
Before a game even started, you knew that somehow the Colts were going to lose that game.
15 seconds to go. They hand off to Edgerrin. He is stopped at the 1-yard line. Would you believe it?
The biggest meltdowns occurred during the playoffs. Twice, the Patriots eliminated the Colts en route to a Super Bowl championship.
Peyton didn't have his best games, against the Patriots.
Pressure coming. He throws the back of the end zone.
Belichick and the Pats would just squat on him.
The Patriots hold this offensive juggernaut to 3 points.
They had basically been the punchline to the Patriots.
Peyton Manning can't win the big one.
Why can't you beat the Patriots?
You're hearing that and you're realizing that's kind of what you're going to be judged on, unfortunately. But I always believed that we would win a championship when our team was good enough.
In 2006, the Colts had home field advantage, and many thought this would be their time.
The Colts are a passing team. They need a fast surface. They lost a number of those playoff games in Foxborough on cold, windy, snowy, muddy days. The Colts' offense does not work efficiently in that kind of weather.
Hey, Justin, tonight is our night. That's right, baby. 1, 2, 3, dominate.
But our #1 revenge game didn't play out as expected.
Intercepted, left side, Asante Samuel, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Asante Samuel.
And you come out and you fall behind 21-3. And you think, here we go again.
Oh, my goodness. I thought it was our time. What is going on?
Talking about being the darkest before the dawn, it was pretty damn dark.
This game's over. Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl.
I went over to the offensive guys on the sideline. I said, hey, it's still our time. I promise you we're going to win this game.
Peyton Manning, he rose to the occasion against a great New England defense. They could not stop him. He really kind of willed the Colts to victory in that game.
And he will fake the ball to a die. Looks for Dan Klecko. He's got it. Touchdown! Dan Klecko. It's 21-19.
You just got the feeling that this was going to be the game that the Colts were going to do it.
He almost lost the football at the Patriot 22.
When you've got luck like that, you probably got a good chance to win.
Manning will give it to Joseph right up the middle. Touchdown!
So we score, and it's exciting. But I remember right then, I was looking at the clock, and they got over a minute to go, and they got Tom Brady at quarterback. And I bent my head down, and I just said, dear Lord, for one time, you just not let Tom make this comeback drive and allow us to win this game of the Super Bowl. That would be a good thing.
Brady out of the shotgun again, takes the snap, sets up, throws one over the intercepted. Marlon Jackson! Marlon's got it! We're going to the Super Bowl! An incredible second half comeback, exercising demons everywhere.
That was a game where Peyton Manning defined his career.
He won his first Super Bowl.
The Colts are world champions!
The fact that he had to go through the Patriots is fitting.
I mean, if he loses that game, doesn't get the Super Bowl, now he's being looked at as like a Dan Marino.
For Peyton Manning to come back and bury all those ghosts, finally win a big one, the biggest revenge game for a single player maybe ever.
As long as football is played, somebody will do somebody wrong, and revenge will always be the best retribution.
We'll make him pay. I'm gonna get you back for that one.
Turns out, not everyone is happy with our list.
A good revenge game, other people have to care about it. the whole country cared about Terrell Owens against the Eagles. I don't think anybody noticed the Bengals-Bears game and that, oh, that's right, that's Benson's big comeback.
His revenge would be if he'd have played his ass off here, and then they cut him. He played like new mown dog here, and you can edit that.
If we left you with a bad taste in your mouth, don't even think about getting revenge on us.